Now, the Bram Weinstein Show on Washington's new home for sports, ESPN 630.
Hey, baby. Hey, baby. Hey, baby. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone.
Can't even say it.
Hi, everyone.
Can't even get it out today.
What's up? How's it going? Happy Tuesday. Well, LeBron's out. Where's he going? I don't know. Windhorse has him going all over the place. Where's he going? Is he going anywhere?
I think he stays there.
Lakers are threatening to draft his son all of a sudden to appease him and hold him hostage because then he can fulfill the dream of playing with his son, whether his son wants him to do that or not. Yeah. And even amidst all the, I love the spin on him. You know, he's really an NBA-ready defensive player, we think.
Oh, totally. Yeah, that spin was great.
The whole, yeah. And the Lakers are, if they have a first-round pick, are picking really low.
Denny's like, what am I, chopped liver?
Right. Right. Hi, everyone. We're going to draft Bronny James.
I told
it's a monumental opportunity, everyone.
I told you that. If
Louise will approve everything, we get LeBron James here. She'll approve it.
If there isn't a bootleg T-shirt outside of Capital One Arena that has MJ and LeBron on it, what are we doing here?
We could get KD, too, for all we know. He probably wants out of there. Goat Town.
He wasted no time bitching about how he was misutilized, by the way.
Yeah, I think then we just put statues of goats up out there and put them in jerseys. Put them in the jerseys. So LeBron's future is today's topic du jour for everyone. They're out.
The first take producers today were like, giddy up, Super Bowl. It's our Super Bowl.
And, because it sounds like he has to opt out first, which sounds like he's going to do.
Yeah, it's one of those he's going to make more money situations, too.
Yeah, because he's going to sign a longer deal with somebody, whether it's them or somebody else. He's going to do it because at his age, he's going to do it no matter what.
Yep.
Whether he's intending on retiring in a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever, it behooves him to extend out as long as he can. It would get him near 40. So, and he can still play. Like that's not the issue here. Does he really want to leave the Lakers? Well, if he wants to win, probably. I think he's now learned that over the last couple of years that the team around him is not that good. They've made a lot of interesting trades that doesn't allow them a lot of flexibility. If you're willing to trade Anthony Davis, you can get something back, but what are you going to get back that's better than him, honestly? Like, maybe. Like
right.
what I think you're trading one star for another star, I guess. The other team would have to be a willing participant and want to give you somebody really good in return. Yeah. So that doesn't always add up most of the time. And then they don't really have any. What else? What else are they going to move? Like Rui's worth multiple second-round picks down the road. If you got a couple second-round picks in the 2040s, you could probably get Rui Hachimura from them. But what's that going to get you?
Who's the guy they got in the Rui trade who made the silly dunk like the next month or whatever after? Remember they got a guy from the Lakers in the Rui trade?
Kendrick Nunn.
Nunn, yes.
They got Nunn. He had a crazy dunk, and of course, Wizards Twitter is, oh my God, we got the best guy ever. He made one play.
Okay, sorry. I was like, I know they got a player, and I can't remember who.
So what's he gonna do?
Do you
so
know
they
where
got,
he's playing?
huh?
Do you know where he's playing?
None? China? Turkey?
Keep guessing.
Israel?
Greece.
I was bound to get to it.
Good God.
The laugh told me everything I needed to know.
He didn't even get a pro back.
Well, he was a pro at the time. You
he
saw his dunk.
For Panathinaikos.
Yeah, whatever that means. Okay, excuse you.
I'm dying. Sorry.
So, yeah.
I'm just.
That's Wizards, bra, right there.
The jerseys are sweet, though.
I bet you should get one. We can put it on our goat statue outside the stadium.
Like Mount Olympus on the jersey.
Oh, those are good.
Silly?
Those are good. Kendrick Nunn, Panagalakis jersey.
There's no G in there.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, yeah, there is. Oh, there's a different spelling.
Panagiotis? Mosgradiosu. I can't. There's no S. There's no S down there. All right, whatever. There's no S. All right. So LeBron, what's he gonna do? You think he's staying?
Yeah, I think he stays. He's building some crazy house out there, too.
Even though he knows that team can't change much and probably can't win. I think we're now look at Minnesota, look at Denver, look at OKC, and go, explain to me how that old team with no flexibility is going to put anything together that is going to make them championship potential if LeBron's not going to be scoring 50 points a game, which I doubt his body is capable of handling
Well,
any longer.
here's the thing, though. I think LeBron is probably realizing he's not LeBron either, and he wants this paycheck because he's LeBron. It doesn't work. If he wants the max contract that he's going to get, he's not going to be able to like contend with the team, is what I'm saying.
I don't think he'll do this yet. However, he could be in line for, Amazon's about to buy the rights.
Mm-hmm.
He could be in line for a Tom Brady-esque Fox deal with Amazon or someone like that, where they actually pay him an extraordinary sum to be on the set, on the call, do podcasts. Like
they get the shop or whatever. They get all that stuff.
All of it.
Yeah.
Like he's been doing it for a long time. And then recently he started working with JJ Redick, and they do a podcast together that's very basketball oriented.
Mm-hmm.
And he could be not unlike what Tom Brady, like what Fox envisions with Tom Brady, not just the guy in the booth who's the very famous player, but when you bring him to the corporate meetings, he gets the money out of the sponsors because it's Tom Brady. And just the proximity to him, you're hanging around with a god.
Right.
So the guy at Ford, who's not impressed by much, is really impressed when he gets to meet Tom Brady, and those sponsorship deals change. I think Amazon or anyone, ESPN or TNT for that matter, could look at him and go, maybe TNT probably doesn't feel the need because they have superstars on their set, and I don't think Chuck's going anywhere anytime soon or Shaq's going anywhere anytime soon. But ESPN, who needs this bad, might look at this and go, you really want to pull viewers away from that TNT broadcast. Why don't we put LeBron on and pay him that crazy sum of money, and then Disney gets to float him around. He's already done movies and things like that. Float him around in all of those sponsorship meetings. Or maybe Amazon looks at him and goes, hey, man, we got plenty of room for you to do whatever shows you want to do, build whatever you want, but we do want you on the NBA coverage. We want you to be our Charles Barkley on our NBA coverage. So I could see a path to a major media entity going to him and giving him the Tom Brady deal, which is hard to turn down because they gave him like 10 years, $35 million a year. He is good at it. He's very good with media and stuff like that. It's not like he's not. He's totally used to it. I don't know. He could do whatever he wants. He could be the Mannings and Brady. He could do all the side stuff he wants to do, and but he'd have to do the main stuff too. I think that's possible. And I think he could probably be convinced to do something like that. Or maybe he just sticks around. If they draft his son, maybe he sticks around, plays a year or two just to do it and, close that circle because he's made it clear he'd like to do that. And them immediately coming out going, yeah, we'll draft Bronny was a desperate attempt to go, we know it's possible he's going to walk on us, and we don't want that to happen. We do want him back. But, I mean, the odd part of that is, don't you kind of need to turn the page anyway? And he is 38, and it's not like this is the only team he ever played. But it's not like Ovechkin, where you're like, we kind of really want to close the chapter here. So he goes and plays with Steph for a year. Like, does it matter? Like, why would they care that much about that?
My thought was if they said to him, hey, we're going to draft Bronny, and then you guys are on the same team together, and then you help us we'll help you, and we trade you both somewhere.
Maybe.
Because this is what happens in the NBA now, too. Like, guys are technically free agents, but the sign-and trade maximizes a contract, and you still have to work these deals out, even when a guy signs on somewhere else, technically, right?
I think the interesting part of that is, though, no one's ever asked Bronny about this. I've never seen an interview with him where everyone's like, so your dad's been talking about modeling your career where he plays with you, and he may be like, yeah, that's awesome, and he also may be like, I've been trying to get out of that shadow my whole life.
Hey, remember when you joked about, LeBron and Bronny ain't going to Orlando?
Right.
But,
well, suddenly,
play the music.
Play the song.
Play the song.
Play the song.
All of a sudden, actually.
They'd have to give him Disney World. I don't know what they could give him to go do something like that. But, to
your point, Disney could get involved there.
Maybe.
They're the jersey sponsor down there.
I think for him, this is like where I was on Jason Kelce. He's one of those guys, he probably, in his heart of hearts, would still play. And then after they got Saquon, he was probably like, maybe I should have gone back and just, because, why not? We're loaded. It's not like we're rebuilding. We loaded up again. So why not? It's one more year. But that I knew this was going to happen because he'd already been thinking about it. He'd already been talking about it. His wife was already trying to get in his ear to quit. And once that podcast went to the level it did, I went, well, there's just such an easy walkway into the next stage, and boom, there it is, Monday Night Football. And sounds like every network tried to get him in some way, and he would have been either put in a booth or put on a set or put somewhere. I thought Amazon was probably the right place for him, but whatever. He ends up he has got a good deal from ESPN. That's where he's going. LeBron is of a different stratosphere than that, for sure.
Yeah.
But I think he could command a Brady contract from one of these groups that looks at him as not just, a guy on TV that people are going to want to watch and be part of the coverage, and whatever he says, means something because it's him. But for the same reasons that Brady's valuable to them, when they go into these corporate retreats and corporate sponsorship meetings, these people who are unimpressed by meeting anybody are meeting a god, and that changes the dynamic of the business relationship, and that's why Brady's so valuable to Fox. It's not that he's better than Greg Olsen. He may or may not be.
Right.
It isn't that at all. Greg Olsen is not going to command this kind of attention or business development. Brady does because it's him. I think LeBron's the same thing. He's been a media entity for a long time. He's worked in movies. He's worked in music. He's worked in entertainment. He understands digital media, really, really well. He's got production companies. He's a willing participant in all of it. I don't know. To me, there's part of me that goes, I think you ought to just retire or just play it out one more year with your son just to say you did it.
Yeah.
Because, if he's staying with the Lakers as is, drafting Bronny doesn't change their championship aspirations whatsoever. He's just staying there to stay there because he doesn't want to move, and he likes being a Laker, and he just wants to end his career. He's basically saying this is it. If he demands going somewhere else, it will be because he wants to try to go out with a ring. And there's only going to be a select few places that he could go and do that and want to do it. And then the other team, I know this is weird, but we are at a point, Tom Brady had a hard time finding takers, which is bizarre to say. I don't know that Minnesota's going to want him with what they have going up there.
No,
I don't think Denver's going to want him for what's going on up there. So he'd have to go to last legs Golden State, where Steph goes, run it with me one time.
Yeah.
And let's see. You, Draymond. Let's see what happens.
They were flirting with each other at the trade deadline, too. And then also...
Because he can't go to the Suns. They're stuck, right?
He's not going to that ownership anyways.
What was the quote? Looney Tunes, they called it. Denver, I would argue, shouldn't do something like that.
No,
they may win another championship
They've beaten them two or three times. He knows he can't do that.
And if you bring someone like that in, it blots out the sun. So it has to be a team that's ready for something like that. And Golden State actually kind of fits the role of he'll be with another superstar. Yeah. That superstar has totally in the past seeded the stage. He did with Durant, willingly did it with Durant. Was we can share this. You don't have to make it all about me. And Clay's going to be gone, so they're going to have a hole. And Draymond will be back, and maybe why not take one run with them? Or I could see one other scenario by which I think he would want to do. And this will be interesting to see if they'd be interested in him. I think he'd probably want to go to the Knicks.
Right, because he was flirting with that halfway through the year.
Well, and also, not unlike Cleveland, where he won there, and he got to first ever championship. The Knicks haven't won a championship since the 70s. They may or may not win it this year. I know they're having their fun, screaming at Embiid and all this stuff and taking over Philadelphia, and they're bing-bongy, which I'm going to get to in a second. They're very bing-bongy. They're all in. And with Milwaukee, gone out the way they are, it's really them in Boston, honestly.
Right.
Let's be real here. It's really that in all likelihood, it's them or Boston that's going to get to the finals. I don't know that I would pick them against Denver for sure, or Minnesota, or even OKC. I don't even know if I'd pick them in a scenario like that, but they're going to get close. They're going to get real close this time. And they're probably going to miss. They're either going to get to the finals because Boston, for some reason, blew up, or they're going to be in the Eastern Conference Finals, and they're going to feel like they're that close. And I got a funny feeling that they might want to have him because outside of Brunson, they don't have another real star. They have a good team that plays really hard, but they don't have a star. And he could be a put him over the top type of figure. And if he does it there, well, that means something because they haven't won in 50 years. So that's the two I could see. Golden State going, Steph going, hey man, let's dream team this. Let's go out at the end here, taking a run with each other, try to show those young kids that we're still the greatest.
Yep.
Or New York, which is going, come here, win here, it's going to matter because it hadn't happened in so long, or he sucks it up and stays with the Lakers and goes, I know I'm not going to win, but this is where I want to end it. And then the other one is going to be, I think the media entities, especially if Amazon's going to get the NBA rights now, which sounds like is happening, and they're going to spend billions of dollars to do it. Well, there's no better way to announce that than LeBron James is the front and center personality that we're going to have on our coverage of major NBA coverage. So I think he's got some interesting options ahead of him, and I'll see what he ends up doing here.
I think there's one team that I threw out there yesterday for KD that I think you should throw with him.
I think he should go to the Heat, but who do you think?
OKC. You say to him, you're only signing a 1 or 2 year deal.
That's an interesting one because they built this thing up with all these guys, and then all of a sudden, again, like, are they welcoming that?
For 1 or 2 years?
Knowing what they've built.
For 1 or 2 years.
I don't know.
Because he's not
It's
playing
like, I don't think
longer.
Denver would want LeBron.
Yeah, but that's because Denver already has a like SGA is amazing for OKC, but they're going to him going, dude, we're only going to have him for a year or two. Then it's your franchise all over again because they've already given him the max contract. Like,
I mean, they're the 1 seed now. They're already into the second round.
Right.
This is very ahead of schedule.
Yeah,
Those
exactly.
guys are young.
That's what
they're really young.
And that's what I'm saying. Like when you use the phrase "blot out the sun," sometimes it's a good thing for a team like that.
Maybe.
They're coming every night to see that guy.
He also is
us.
not much of an attention seeker, actually.
Right.
I think he kind of liked OKC because he could kind of hide there a little bit.
Right. And if I'm OKC, I'm kind of pitching to him going, hey, dude, remember how it felt when you won in Cleveland? Like, I know it's your hometown, but it's the smaller market where the fans embrace you in a different way than in L.A. when you lose one game and everyone wants to fire the head coach. Yeah. Right? Like, the pressure is completely different in a city like that than the Lakers, where they could go, yeah, we'll bring in Bronny, and guess what? We have 1 million draft picks. The Lakers will happily take, whatever we give them because we have 60 first-round picks over the next 7 years.
The other one, too, is like, it looks like Milwaukee's going to go out because of injuries.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
This was, I couldn't believe it when the series started and the odds were still tilted.
Disaster year for them.
Well, I mean, like, I couldn't
bottom.
believe when the series started and the odds were still, you could get odds on the Pacers winning the series. And I'm like, Giannis isn't playing at all.
Right.
And then, so Rick Carlisle's the coach of that team. Like, would you think that this was going to be too big for them or something?
Right,
like, they're
right.
really good. Like, and they're getting a gift now. So Dame's going to be an interesting one to watch because he got super sad facing Milwaukee. He didn't like it there. So does he want to go back to the West Coast? Does he just want to go home to Portland?
Right.
Which may or may not happen. Does he want to go with LeBron, try to get to LA and play with him because it's back on the West Coast? And
right.
They could trade, I don't know, sign trade D'Angelo Russell maybe. That's about it. That's all they can really do.
Right.
I don't know. So we'll have to see. All right. The other thing, which was aforementioned, the Knicks showing up to Philadelphia, bing-bonging it out, and the videos of overrunning that stadium in Game 4, and then Embiid going afterwards, this is not acceptable.
Right.
Which, you know what? His point was kind of like, we're Philly, man. This stuff doesn't happen here, right?
I told you this.
And I don't blame him, actually, for saying it because that dude is playing with a bad knee, Bell's palsy, scoring 50 points a game, and the place is overrun with Knicks fans. He's probably, of all people who's ever had a right to say something, it's him going, really? Because I'm putting it all on the line for you guys. And where are you right now?
2 weeks ago, you wanted to make fun of me when I said, I think there's going to be a sneaky amount of Caps fans at that Flyers game. You're going, no, it's Philly.
It's Philly.
And I said, that fan base in that city, and I'll say it again, is soft if it's not the Eagles or the Phillies in the playoffs. Overrated fan base right now.
Again, that's Mike Callow.
Yeah,
you can reach
absolutely.
him on X at Mike Callow.
Sure, 100%.
I've learned my lesson with taking shots at them because then I become fodder for Kincaid
proof
in
is
the
in the
morning.
pudding.
And my Philly fans who listen to this are like, yeah, you don't say nothing because we'll tell them up there. And then all of a sudden, Missinelli's calling you to come on his show to try to ambush me with Howard Eskin. I don't have time for that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is the first game tipping off on a Sunday too much for you to sell out your arena? Against the Knicks?
Oh.
That's inexcusable. I don't care.
I was surprised.
Soft.
I was surprised how overrun it was.
Yes.
Like, it was so overrun.
Correct.
Because unlike here, where there's a lot of people from a lot of places,
yes.
and it can in LA, same thing. Like, it can happen.
It spirals. It
Yes,
spirals in certain
It can
events,
happen.
yes.
Philadelphia is not a transient town.
Correct.
There's not a bunch of people that moved from other places to be in Philadelphia.
Cherry Hill, not exactly attracting all the people from all over the country.
There's a lot of great schools there, and I'm sure a lot of the alums stay who came from other places, like Penn and Villanova and Temple. There's a lot of really great universities there, and I'm sure a lot of people come from all different places. But what you don't hear is those people staying there. They typically go home.
That's right.
Not like here, where people come here and they're from another place and they go to Georgetown or AU or GW, but they came to work on Capitol Hill.
That's right.
And they stay. So we have all these people that are from other places, and this can happen.
Correct.
When it's super exciting.
Embassies, too, by the way. There's certain nights where that happens as well.
Yes. Philadelphia is not a town I think of when I think of people just moving there because it's cool.
Right.
Like, there's no reason to move there. There isn't. So
you're getting a little more personal than I was.
Yeah, all those people that are there, they're all Philly.
That's right. Correct.
Like, you walk around D.C. and just walk down the street, all the people you look at could be from all over the place.
That's right.
You walk down the street in Philly, it's John this, John that, every store's green, everything's all Philadelphia. They're very proud to be from Philadelphia. Baltimore's like this.
Yes.
You walk around Baltimore,
100%,
everybody's from Baltimore.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So that was and to Embiid's case, like, in his defense, he's so right.
He is. That's what I'm saying.
He's so right because that was crazy. And this was coming off a game where he had scored 50 points with Bell's palsy. What are you people doing?
And this wasn't like you and I were loosely complaining. I don't think we complained about it on the air. I think we loosely complained about it off the air. Like the Caps Sunday night game against the Rangers, when they were down 3-0 and it's 8 o'clock puck drop, I was like, oh boy,
that's not good.
That's not a great combo.
And it's 3-0.
Right.
And the bing bongs are around. All the New York people are going to try to get in to see it.
That arena wasn't overrun. There were a lot of Rangers fans, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't overrun. And
honestly, if somehow the Wizards were in this situation playing the Knicks, it would have been the same thing here. The whole thing would have been Knicks fans.
Right, but
I know that.
But here's the thing. DC fans aren't puffing their chest out saying, we're the effing best, go Birds.
We also don't have Joel Embiid playing.
That's right. I bet you if we did have Joel Embiid, though, this place would be completely different when it would come to the franchise.
When Gilbert was here, or when John was here.
Peak John, yeah.
Peak John, and jumping on the scores table when they're playing Boston in the semifinals. It wasn't all Celtics fans here.
That's right.
It wasn't.
Right.
So, listen, I was surprised. I was really, that one, because
to me, it just confirmed what I was already alluding to.
The videos in the concourses were
outrageous. They were chanting F. Embiid out loud in that city.
And all those people, they came down from New York to go to this game. They don't live there.
What are you getting at?
They're like, we're going to go to this. We're going to yell F. Embiid. We're going to go to AC, and then we're going to go home.
Well, I think some people, by the way, I don't know who did it, but you could have done both. You had first game. You could
have done
first day. That's the first NBA game of the day up in Philly, and it's a 2-hour drive down here.
Yeah.
You could have done both.
And you could have come down here for the Rangers game.
Yeah.
That's a possibility. Or you can just go to AC. You always just go to AC. That's the best. If you win, go to Philly and, go down to AC. Oh, man.
So I stand by what I said 2 weeks ago.
You proved to be right.
Yeah, thank you.
You proved to be right.
I don't know if you've ever said that in all the time we've been together on the air.
Well, when you're right, you're right. It was alarming to see it.
Uh-huh.
And they had won game 3. That was the weirdest part of the whole thing. They'd won game 3, and I was like, Joel Embiid had and I think it was because the NFL draft was going on. He had an all-time performance, and I don't think people were giving him enough credit for it. What he did, he scored 50 points with Bell's palsy and a bad knee in a must-win game at home. That is an all-time, all-star, all-timer performance, and people weren't talking about it like that, but they had to have been in Philadelphia. Let's see what Roseman's going to do. I'm going to talk about him in a bit, too.
What I think happens here is what's happening to Philly is they are still not on New York's level. Like, I bet you those fans, the second the schedule came out, buy them up. Doesn't matter what the series is going to be at. Buy up that game
That's true. If you really think about the Sixers, they could easily have gone to Madison Square Garden and tried to buy a lot of tickets. That didn't happen.
No, of course not. Well, that's because it's also a different price range, too. And that's also something you start
getting
to run
into that place is very difficult.
Correct.
Yes.
But what I think happened here is...
Well, I remember once I happened to go out a buddy of mine who got me when the Phillies played the Yankees in the World Series.
Okay.
Pedro Martinez was pitching in that. And a buddy of mine had Yankees tickets and invited me up. He's like, do you want to go see a World Series game? Because Pedro was pitching that night. I'm like,
duh.
Yeah, sure.
Duh, yeah.
So, go see a World Series game at Yankee Stadium? Yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah.
So we went. There weren't a lot of Phillies fans there.
Of course not. Of course there
They
weren't.
couldn't get into that.
No, of course not.
I mean, I was just casual observer, didn't care who won, but like, there wasn't like overrun with people wearing red hats.
And that's what I'm getting at. I think Philly fans think they're on the same level as New York fans, and chess, not checkers, is what Knicks fans are playing. They're bing-bonging their way over in a way that you didn't even anticipate happening, essentially. Also, same thing with them with the Phillies. They love the Phillies, but that joint's not sold out every night. Wait till the playoffs, and then it sells out.
That's a little baseball, though. What places are sold out every night in baseball? I mean, that's a rare...
Okay, sold out is probably a strong word.
Even
but
Fenway's having trouble because their team's not that good.
Right, but even so, I mean, there's your example though. The Phillies do have a good team, and they're not sold out every night. They have this all-star lineup.
Well, the Orioles have a crazy team, and they're not sold out every night.
Their owner's spending all this money though. They have nothing to bitch about with that team.
Right.
They should have more fans that are there every night. I think in attendance last year, it took a couple months for them to actually pick it up.
I mean, the link is Mad Max Terradome.
No, Birds territory.
Yeah.
Not touching it. Because that's a whole different animal.
It is a different animal.
But what I think
that is an environment that's hard to describe unless you've gone.
Exactly. But that's what I'm getting at. I think we need to start having the conversation of just because the Eagles fans, which the Venn diagram cycles over for a bunch of the other teams, not the same. Not nearly the same vibe, not nearly the same feeling of violence.
That's true because like they've had through the years great college basketball programs. You're not like Villanova's Murderers Row.
No.
You don't get anything like that.
The Flyers could have made it into the playoffs that game, and it should have been crazy that last game, even though it was a long shot.
I remember when I was a kid, though, we used to go to Caps games, and the Flyers fans would come down en masse for that. When it was the Cap Center, they would come down en masse for that. I'll never forget this one night. I used to love this event, but they did it on the wrong night this night. They used to give out full-sized street hockey sticks with the Caps written on it.
Not anymore.
Which was I had to go to that because I wanted it. Because it was like an incredible toy to get to go home with. And it was full-sized, full-on, like great street hockey stick that said Capitals on it. Well, one time I went to a game and it was Caps Flyers, and people were jousting in the parking lot and attacking each other with the sticks. And I think that was the night they learned maybe we should give that away when we play the Blues.
Right.
Or the Flames, but not the Flyers.
Right. Exactly. So that's what I'm saying here. Like that place, and I get it. There's actually like ownership gripes with the Flyers because of who they've signed, and it's gritty mania, and they don't care about the team as much. But like they are
way too into that mascot. I agree. That's another thing. They're way too into that.
It's a whole other conversation. But what I'm getting at here is their loyalty isn't as strong as you think it is. Is what I'm getting at. And so
soft. Are you now? I won't say anything about I'm with you on the Eagles thing. That is a whole different animal.
Correct. I'm not coming after the link on Sundays.
Yeah.
Not touching it because that is its own nuclear reactor, and I'm not going to set it off.
Yeah.
And this started though in 2018 when they won the Super Bowl. The whole area got a little bit soft. Now they're back. The Eagles fans are back. Like that thing is Death Star fully operational. That fan base, but the rest of it. Soft.
Wow. Okay, we'll be right back. Bram Washington Show, ESPN 630, Sports Capital. Brad speaks. Brad speaks. Want to hear his recap?
Oh, boy.
Well, listen, I mean, we get to hear what he says now and think about the things he used to say
They asked him about the head coach.
They did. It's my favorite quote.
Did he let it slip? I need to talk to Ted and Tom. Oh, wait.
Not this time.
Not this time.
Not this time. After game 3, he said, I'll be damned if we get swept.
That's right. And then freezing cold takes.
Yeah.
Took it and ran with it on that one.
Then he said this. He said, it's a bleep feeling. Excuse my language. He goes, we had huge expectations as a team and obviously individually to contribute and be part of something really big. And that series just sucked. The last game for me was horrible. It's hard to process, but you're a man. You take it in stride. You learn how to get better. You look forward to the summer to get better. That's what he said about it.
Sure, pal.
He said he could almost do no right and that there was no excuse for the game that he played because he fouled out, and he described as being in early foul trouble was bad. Asked about, did you see the clip of him brushing aside Frank Vogel's hand, which led to questions about the coaching? He said this about it. I was frustrated with fouls. I knew I was coming out. And he said it wasn't anything against him. He goes, I'm sorry, it probably did look bad, but I was just frustrated with myself being in foul trouble, and I knew I was coming out of the game, and he was doing his job. He was being smart and saving me. It was nothing towards him. So there you go. So that's actually the best thing he has said in a long time, to just clear something up. Typically, though, like, Brad more like doesn't look that engaged to be that concerned about the whole thing. That's what we got used to.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Always next time.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's see. On the coach, asked about him. I think he's a good coach. I think he's a great coach. I think he's a proven winner. It's not really a question I like answering because I'm not responsible for coaches having jobs, being hired or fired or whatever.
Huh?
Yeah, that was my favorite quote because I'm like, really? Because I remember
this is
one
the first
time
actually in a while you're not responsible for that.
That's right. I remember you talking about literally calling the owner or the GM about the coaches here and deciding what may or may not happen in the future. But that's what he said. He said, for me, this was an open book because it was new. Frank was new. The staff was new. I was going into everything with an open mindset, just welcoming everything, learning everybody on the fly. But he said, don't talk to me about the coaches stuff because Frank's an awesome guy, a great coach. What that looks like is not up to me.
All right.
He's learned.
All right, pal.
Yep. Let's see. Second half of the season, he played a lot of point guard. It's not his position.
Right.
He said this, it was challenging, but it was something I was willing to do. It was what the team needed. It wasn't the most ideal thing, but again, it's what the team needed, and I was comfortable with it. It's tougher in today's society. Everybody keeps saying a true point guard. There's not really any true point guards that play in the game today. It's a lot of combo guards, a lot of scoring guards. Okay.
Sure.
I think Dame Lillard's a point guard who scores a lot of points.
That's right. Yes.
I also think he's a point guard first. Beal is not a point guard first. Mm-hmm. And that's not his fault. That's bad roster construction. So when everybody goes back to them and says, part of the problem is that you had a very unusual roster setup with not a very good bench, but like a really unusual roster setup. Like this guy who's a volume scorer off the wing, who's not accustomed to bringing the ball up the court and initiating the offense, maybe that's not a good idea, but they also didn't have another point guard on the team.
Yeah.
So part of this is, I feel for him because I think he was put in a position where it wasn't his best spot, but that's what they did. And then the other part of me goes, well, since you're saying it that way, that everybody knows Joe true point guards, why didn't you succeed at it then? Right. You're actually indicting yourself by saying that.
Correct. He did a lot of that when he was here.
Beal averaged 5 assists to 2.5 turnovers in the regular season, 4.5 assists to 3.8 turnovers in the playoffs.
Good God.
That's bad.
That's terrible.
You are not a point guard. That's really bad. Almost as many turnovers as assists. That's really bad.
Yeah.
But, is that really his fault? I would argue they should have gotten a point guard.
Right. Correct.
So that's kind of not his fault. And they weren't going to make Booker do it, and they're not going to make Durant do it.
Yeah.
He said, it's about initiating our offense. We could have been better in that fashion. I could have been better switching pace, obviously taking care of the ball, a lot better than what I did, but I was comfortable with it. I'm able to handle the ball. I'm able to handle pressure. It was dumb passes and mistakes and unfathomable passes. So he's blaming himself.
All right.
Brad. I don't know why I think this is funny. I just do.
Well,
and I like Brad. Everybody likes Brad, but there's something funny about this. At least from my Washingtonian perspective of it, there's something funny about it.
No, because there is something funny about it when you have the guy like Brad that grabs the power, because that's what he did here in Washington, and we all saw it. We all yelled and screamed about, don't give him the contract, 2 or 3 separate times, by the way. And then basically, I think it's satisfying for him to go on a national stage to a team like that and do exactly what we said would happen.
Well, this is actually beyond.
Yeah, it's worse. It's worse.
This is way worse.
Right.
Like, I figured he'd score 24 quiet points.
Right, correct. Right.
And not have a real impact on the outcome.
Yes.
Probably not play defense very well.
Because he never plays defense.
Right. And then the Suns lose close games, and it kind of flies under the radar. Because he was placed in a profile position and because he imploded so badly in the series, for the first time, people are looking at him going, aren't you the guy making $54 million a year?
That's right. Yes.
I mean, the difference in the past with the Wizards when they were in the playoffs was it wasn't this situation. They weren't expected to win in any of the series they were ever in.
Yep. Right.
Except for that one year when John wasn't hurt and they got to the Eastern Conference semifinals and they had one of the best offenses in the league and it looked like,
That's right.
who knows? Like, who knows? They could go far with this team. That's the one and only time when he was here. So in fairness, like, no kidding, they're slinging arrows at him. He's on a team with Durant and Booker that was expected to win a championship this year. So obviously they're looking at him different. But it is funny that, like, he got more pointed questions at him in this one article I read, in this one interview session that he did, than I think he got in a decade here.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Right, Candace? And Candace is like, you're right.
You're right. Yeah.
Correct.
Switchblade has to come out every once
Right,
in a while.
David?
Yeah.
You're right. We never pulled the switchblade out on him.
Right.
Now, in fairness, he didn't have teams like this.
Correct.
So the switchblade comes out when you fail miserably with a good team. When you fail with a bad team, everyone goes, well, we didn't expect you to win anyway.
That's right.
But I do like it. I don't know why I like it, but I do like
No,
it.
it's because it's also because he went for the power grab, and it's backfiring on him. And
He has a no trade clause, which means he picked to go there.
That's also the layer, though, that I think was setting everyone
That's
off.
the choice, remember?
Yeah.
The Heat wanted him.
Right.
I would have been very upset when we traded him to him because he probably would have been put in the right role there and would have made them better.
Honestly,
He would not have been the point guard there. That would not have happened.
for sure. But I do. Part of me now would.
Tyler Hero's probably like, I can score as much as you, dude.
Part of me now, though, is going, I kind of wish he had gone to Miami because we would have really seen the real Brad stand
Well,
up.
I think well,
And
because
that could have been disastrous.
That organization with Phoenix doesn't have the accountability level.
That's right. Right.
Miami does.
Exactly.
So if he was having the season he was having in the middle of it, Riley or Spoelstra would have come out at some point, or Jimmy Butler would have come out.
I think
They
Jimmy
would have come out at
fought
some
him.
point and been like, "This ain't us, pal.
Right.
Get with the program."
Jimmy would have made that guy makes $52 million? Question mark?
Yeah.
It would have been one of those comments.
With a weird hairstyle.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
And his hands up, like, I don't know.
Emo Jimmy.
Yeah, Emo Jimmy would have been like, I don't know about that one. And Riley would have been like, yeah, I don't know about that one.
Because here's the thing, too.
Riley would have been like, hey, we traded for you. You wanted to come here. You go show up and play or what?
Right.
And in Phoenix, where they called it Looney Tunes, it all spiraled out because the organization wasn't prepared for anything like this. Like, the infrastructure needs to be around something like this. This is a total failure. It's not just that he was misplaced, didn't play well, or that Durant didn't live up to whatever, and the coaches were all new, but they were just kind of brought in. They fired the other coach, and the owner's brand new. It sounds like the whole thing wasn't ready for anything like this.
And in Phoenix, too, ultimately, if they move on from Durant, ultimately, if they move on from Booker, and he's stuck there, he just fades out. He wouldn't have faded out in Miami, though. Like, that would have, that's where I'm kind of like, that would have been more fun to follow.
Right. It wouldn't have been let's just put this together and see what happens. It would have been like, you're part of this.
Right.
Are you part of this? And that actually would have been funnier.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Maybe he didn't like the heat that was coming from that.
I think that's actually what it is. I think I said that
He looked at Durant and Booker, and he's like, well, I can win there.
Yeah.
But he also knew Phoenix still, even with that team, is a little under the radar and not as accountable like the Miami team is. That's why they're good, actually, is they're extremely accountable to one another. There's a culture. Phoenix don't have that.
Correct.
Oh, Brad. But he got more pointed questions in this one article than I remember in a decade here.
Well,
because he just didn't get
pressure. There's way more pressure there.
Yeah.
You have to make the playoffs and be, on a super team for those questions to come out. He was never on a super team here.
But all along, my whole problem with it, the coverage of him, always was, if you're this good and you're this guy, why aren't you leading us? And like, we'll be understanding if you don't have a championship caliber team. But you don't seem to make anybody better.
Right.
You don't seem to elevate us. You don't seem to win games in the fourth quarter like when we need you to. And your leadership skills are very much in question. But like nobody seemed to want to go there with him very often. And that frustrated me about the coverage of him. Well, it just frustrated me because I'm like, I want to have a winner here, and we're not even demanding accountability from the guy who's making more than every other player in the NBA, and our team doesn't even make the playoffs.
Well, allegedly, remember, he had his own hype man in the media, too.
Yeah, he had his own hype man. That was an incredible tweet. His own hype man in the media. He had a plant in the media? He did a good job, I'll tell you that. He was worth every penny because nobody went after Brad like this.
Correct.
Nobody did.
Well, you also know why no one could go after Brad.
Right.
everyone on payroll is working for the team essentially. So
yeah, I guess. And then last year, the blogger writes one bad thing about one sign.
Yes.
It got kicked out.
Got kicked out
For pointing out that Tyus Jones isn't in the marketing material. Like, it's an observation.
Yeah, right.
Like, it's not like he made it up. He's just like, well, he's not in the marketing material, and get rid of him. Remove him. That's when Ted goes Mr. Burns and hits the button. Remove him quickly.
Release the hound.
Did you see what that blogger said? He pointed out a sign that I made. My God. Well, see what happens next for Brad and company. See what happens next for us. Suns, bruh. I can't wait. Durant leaves. Booker probably tries to leave. They may or may not let that happen. They probably should reset. They have nothing, right?
First take?
Brad's going to be stuck because no one's going to trade. He can't trade for him. He's going to be on the worst team in the league again immediately.
What first take producer do I need to slide a $100 bill to? Like, hey, in the middle of July, can you guys do a segment? Who has the better culture, the Wizards or the Suns? Because I think it's legit.
It's a good question. It is a good question.
Looney Tunes or building something?
Yeah, monumental opportunity.
Hey, that's water under the bridge. We're not talking about that anymore.
Looney Tunes or Boundary Stones? Who's better? Edge to who? We need the old Nick Bakay bit. Tail of the tape. Looney Tunes versus Boundary Stones.
We need to go find the old 90s, like actual Looney Tunes Suns gear.
Yeah. Oh.
With, like Taz on it and stuff.
Yeah. Send that to Brad.
Yeah. Here you go.
God. All right, let me take a quick break. Bram watch the show. ESPN 630 Sports Capital. So today the Capitals are breaking down everything after their season ended on Sunday night. And TJ Oshie, who took an extended little stroll off of the ice after the game against the Rangers, that was obviously noticeable. Mm-hmm. He's got 1 year left on his contract. He's been in and out of the lineup all year. You never really know with these guys until they tell you the truth. And he talked about the truth of his physical, capabilities right now. It's not pretty. He talked openly about how bad his back is.
Yep.
And that there are, I think Steven Strasburg said this once, like can't pick up his kids, has to lay down often, is peeing in water bottles sometimes because he can't get to the bathroom.
They said, this is the quote, literally on the floor, peeing in water bottles. He can't pick up his kids either until he sees his doctor for a fix.
Yes.
That's the exact quote.
Yeah. So, which would lead you to believe if there is no fix for it, that he might retire.
Right.
So, we may have literally seen the last of him. That's possible. Backstrom, he did some unusual procedures to try to extend his career, and he gave it a shot, and it didn't work out. And clearly, they're going to have to do something there, too, because he still is under contract as well.
Yes,
so they're going to have to figure something out there, but he can't play anymore. So they're going to have to figure something out with him. This is not unlike Strasburg. He literally can't play anymore. Oshie wouldn't say retirement. He said he wants to play. He's just not sure he's physically capable of doing it. And he left it at, if we can't come up with a plan of how this is going to be rectified to allow me to play, I will walk away. Yeah. So I bet you within the next 60 days, you're going to find out whether he's playing hockey anymore or retiring from the sport.
Brian McClellan also said they did not give him a deadline. They said they'll let him figure it out on his own. There's no rush for it, but essentially said for him to take his time, not to have to rush to any kind of conclusion.
Well, there is no rush.
Right.
I was thinking about him, actually. It was funny in reading all that, and I'm like, I don't know what his goals are beyond this. You think he wants to coach at all? Do you think that's any interest of his? I mean, a lot of really great ex-players have gone into it. I just don't know what his interests are. I only mentioned it because Seattle just fired their coach.
Oshie reminds me,
and that would seem like he was linked to going back there when the franchise, had the draft that they do,
the expansion draft,
and they didn't expose him, but he said he didn't want to go to it.
They asked
him, do you want to?
Yeah,
because he's from there, and thought it would be nice for him if he wanted to go home and be the first star of the first hockey team, in Seattle. And he said no, and he wanted to stay here, which is his right, and I'm glad he did. To me, he's a Hall of Fame player. I don't know how you feel about that. I think he's a Hall of Fame player. But I don't know how he feels about that. I mean, there's this weird opening all of a sudden up there, and I don't know. Maybe he's interested in that. If he wants to go back home, he also recently said he likes all his friends at preschool. So maybe he just wants to stay here.
This is actually what I was literally going to say. Oshie actually reminds me more of Zimmerman than someone that would get into coaching. Zimmerman, he stepped away from the Nationals and realized he actually kind of likes the whole family thing.
Yeah.
And Zim, not unlike Oshie, has 4 kids now with his wife.
Yeah.
Oshie's on kid number 4 with his wife.
Yeah, maybe he's just staying here.
I don't think like maybe coaching comes later, but I don't think anytime soon. Like his daughter, I think is a year old or under a year old. I want to say like really young, and they had like 3 or 4 kids over the last 10 years. So, I mean, my guess here is Oshie might want to be a coach down the line, but not anytime soon.
Okay.
Probably wants his kids to be a little more grown before he does that kind of move.
The other thing that we need to figure out, and I just don't know the rules of the salary cap, and I should probably know this. If he retires, does his salary come off the salary cap? It does.
Yeah, he does.
So
not.
they will get this whole back.
They will, but he doesn't get paid. So that's where the whole interesting thing comes with that. So.
There's only 1 year left.
Yep.
I would think that he could be an ambassador for this team for a very long time.
Yes.
So if he could do a solid to the team,
right.
I would think Ted could then turn around and say, we're going to get you that money back over the next few years, and we're going to ask you to do things on behalf of the organization, and I would assume he'd be okay with all of that.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly right. So
and with Backstrom, there's a similar, I think, feeling with him, I would hope. Is he in the last year of his contract coming up? Or
Backstrom
has he got
more than that, I think. I got to look
So they got to work something out with him.
Because Backstrom signed that big extension right before the pandemic, and what happened there was he signed a significant contract, and then because of the COVID stuff, the cap froze, essentially. And so they accounted for the cap going up with his contract, and that didn't happen. So Backstrom, he signed, actually, you might be right here. He signed a 5-year deal, which would put him, right now, his last year would be actually this
Next
upcoming year.
So there's some business to be done with both of them. Definitely with Backstrom and maybe with Oshie.
$9.2 million cap.
We need to do something about that. I mean, they could flip around what they want to do. One other thing that was said today, I saw Spencer Carberry say something, and this is where I kind of landed on this team the other day, which is I don't see a lot of finishers right now. And maybe a couple of these players like McMichael or LaPierre or Miro, probably more than the other two because he has the look of it.
Yep.
They might grow into that role, but they're not there yet. And Carberry basically admitted that we need to find some other people who are going to be high volume scorers for us, and admitted, like, where in the world do you get those except in the draft? Like, nobody gives you that.
That's right.
They don't give you the 40-goal scorers. That's not how it works.
Yep.
So they're a little stuck here unless these guys grow into this, which more and more and more to me says people like Backstrom and Oshie need to somehow get out of their way so that they can allow these guys to play and develop this way or go in a different direction if they have to.
Correct. I mean, with those two, you're not going to force them out by any means. In terms of finding finishers, some of that is with development, and I said this to you yesterday where, there's not that going to be the top 6 ahead of them that's blocking their way. Like, I throw it back to Burakovsky and Vrana. They got traded because they were stuck behind these guys. Well, they're not going to be stuck. These guys currently right now are not stuck behind those guys now. So they're going to get the opportunity here. I mean, McClellan did say today, though, he said he could address the scoring not only by free agency, but also by trades, too. So I would be interested to see there, too, if he actually does pull a trigger.
Trade who?
I mean, you just showcased all of these young guys in the playoffs. So you could possibly move them. Does he dangle Ryan Leonard out there for a team, too? Like,
please, God, no.
I would think not. Like, he looks like a star, but you never know with hockey. Sometimes, if you can get a legitimate scorer that's disgruntled, I mean, you never know. So
I wouldn't do that.
Neither would I. But, like, let's say, I don't know, like, just let's say Kucherov comes out tomorrow and says, I don't want to be in Tampa anymore.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to take Ryan Leonard for you to get Nikita Kucherov. Like, sometimes one of those pops up. This happens in hockey more often than we think, just because here it's all been sunshine and butterflies, and no one really asks for trades here. But Florida constantly was trading guys. People always want out of Columbus. Like, there could be one of those guys that pops up, and maybe if you're the Caps, you're a dance partner with one of them. I don't think so, but I'm just saying it happens more often in hockey. We just don't really have it happen in this market.
Last thing I would just say to TJ Oshie, who just has been a great performer here. Quality of life matters.
Yep. Right.
So, to gut yourself through one more year, which is all it would be, one more year on a team that is struggling to keep it together and be competitive at all, you need to weigh that. And, so, I wish him the best, and I hope he makes the right decision for himself. And I have a funny feeling he's going to come to a decision where he's not playing anymore. That's what I think is going to happen. But we'll see. It's hard to leave this stuff, so I understand the desire to not leave it. But in his case, with what he revealed today, which is not surprising, you got your rest of your life ahead of you. You got a lot of young kids. I would hope you have enough money in the bank that you could. And we're going to love you here forever. So whatever money you're leaving behind on that contract, I'm sure Ted will find a way to get back to you.
What I don't really quite understand with Oshie, though, the one thing that I'll say is, okay, he has this back doctor in Minnesota. Okay, what is this one doctor doing that you like? Did you guys?
Who's the barber here?
Like,
we now know that a small toad or troll lives in your stomach.
like this is like.
Well,
I had this question because he's made multiple trips. I don't know if did you read today? He flew out there after game 2. It was an emergency visit, so he flew from New York to there.
Well, what's somebody going to do about a chronic back issue in one day?
Right. Well, this is what I'm getting at here. Is
you broke your back? Your back is broken, spinal.
So
that's it.
My ask here is we can't find a local guy to just travel with the team for a year, or or have a guy based
here. The idea of just knowing somebody's in traction all day and then playing a hockey game is just not doesn't sound great to me.
I agree, but I'm just saying that's my one question of we can't figure out what this one doctor is doing and bring it back here.
Get Oshie out of the mummy suit. Yeah. We got to get him out of here.
That's right. Yeah, he's in some kind of iron lung machine.
I know.
There was one other thing too. McClellan did address Kemper and just said that it got away from him this year. He hopes that he comes back next year, revamped. Lindgren said the same thing, was saying, I know the guy that's going to be working out tomorrow is going to be Kemper. So
translation, we probably can't trade him.
Well, there's been that rumor. There's been a rumor that they're trying to move him.
3 years left, decent number.
Right.
Bad year.
Right, correct.
Good luck getting people to be please, more of that.
Yeah, right. And then one other blurb was McClellan was asked about some of the young guys and who's in line for extensions, and they said that he already said they're talking to Weinstein and McMichael about that.
Okay.
That's not talk. McClellan tells you what he's going to do.
Yeah.
Okay. That could happen.
And I think both of them
soon.
I'm down for.
Weinstein's a great bottom 6 forward. McMichael, I think, proved in the playoffs. He was the best player on the ice for them for one of those games. So, yeah, absolutely well-deserved.
All right, I'm going to take a quick break. My favorite hot take artist these days is Nick Wright, and he takes aim at Howie Roseman, and he makes an interesting point. So you'll hear that next. Bram Washington Show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. All right, let me get back into the NFL draft here a little bit. Everybody's going through winners and losers today. Most people, and most stuff I read, believe the Eagles did really well. Mm-hmm. The Eagles drafted the number 1 corner on the board. It fell into their lap. They didn't even have to move up. It was the guy out of Toledo, whose name I can't remember now.
Then,
no, that was the Iowa guy they got in the second round. Cooper DeJean went in the second round via a trade with us. We traded number 40 to him, to them. They took Cooper DeJean, so we get to link that in history. They wouldn't have gotten him probably had they not made this deal, whatever. So, and we moved down to 50 and 53 and ended up getting Mike Sandestrill, which is my favorite pick outside of Jaden Daniels of the draft, and then took Ben Sinnott and we got what we hope is a young, Cooley-ish tight end again here behind Zach Ertz. And, knowing Cliff Kingsbury a little bit, at least what he's in the past, a lot of 2 tight end sets. So I think we might see Sinnott and Ertz together a lot on the field. I think that's probably going to be part of the plan. Anyway, so Howie, I think has this perception of being really, really good at the draft, and I don't disagree with it. Often I find their moves to be kind of right on point. I guess we'll see with this one, with the DeJean one. Did we get a better corner than they did by trading with them? I don't know. Right. That's probably in discussion. I actually think DeJean's a safety and not even a corner, which is, I think, why he ended up in the second round. Some people were saying he was the best corner on the board, and suddenly he was the 4th cornerback taken. So what does that tell you?
Yeah.
So he might be, position flex. Ron will like him. He can play a lot of different positions. Anyway.
Interesting.
Anyway, my perception of Howie Roseman is he does a really good job. Look at that roster.
Sure.
I think that his wheelhouse is offensive line. They did miss on Andre Dillard, but outside of that, go look. I mean, through the years, all these offensive linemen that they selected at various spots in the draft have turned out, many of them to be all pros and a couple of them all-timers. Lane Johnson and Jason Kelsey are going to the Hall of Fame. They've had all-time type players. They took Jalen Hurts where they took him, and he's turned into a really, really good player for them when they had to kind of get out of Carson Wentz. He turned out to be a really good answer for them. They picked Devontae Smith, who looks like Emmanuel Forbes, turns out to be a stud, right? Total stud.
Yep.
I mean, Heisman Trophy winner, but looks like is stud. I think his magic often is moving around and filling holes and being aggressive, which comes from ownership too. But they went and got Saquon Barkley. They've done this year after year where they go and find guys to fill in. They made the trade for A.J. Brown. I think Howie does a really, really, really good job. But there has to be dissenting opinion, right? And when I first saw this clip, I wasn't sure I was going to watch it because the context was here was somebody going after Howie Roseman and his reputation of being really good. But I'm starting to like Nick Wright more and more lately, which is surprising. I don't like this style of broadcasting where you just come up with opinions and throw it out there to see what sticks and for social media clicks. But I found a few times with him that I've kind of liked what he's had to say, and I think his opinions are well-reasoned. And this one was certainly off the board because most people like to praise Roseman for all the things that he's done, and that's not what Nick Wright did. So listen to what he said about Howie Roseman.
I'm in the second round, and I think Quinton Mitchell's either – you can make an argument he's the best corner in the draft. Some people say Terry and Arnold, but I think they got 2 of the 3 best defensive backs in the draft. Those are needs. So I think that's true. I also think this is true. Their GM, Howie Roseman, and maybe this is smart, tends to be his draft mimics the consensus media big boards more than any other GM, which is why every year people are like, Howie did it again, because he's doing what the media big boards would have done. He even said in his press conference after the third-round pick, Jalix Hunt, pardon me, that, man, I almost texted Daniel Jeremiah asking him to take him off his best available list because I didn't want someone else to draft him. I was like, Howie, I'm not sure if other GMs are really scouring Daniel Jeremiah, because here's what we don't do as much. Because I think he's a sharp GM, and I think trading back is smart, and I think getting extra draft picks are smart. But a lot of the picks that we have talked about, wow, this guy was the 9th player on everyone's board, and he went 30th. Those didn't work out. Like, if you go back and look at it, it's like Keely Ringo, Nakobe Dean. Last year, he got Nolan Smith at 30. Howie did it again. Anybody heard from him? Jordan Davis, they got him at 12. He's been okay. Right. Like Andre Dillard was a first-round pick that didn't work out. We know Jalen Reagor, 1 pick in front of Justin Jefferson. So I don't know that he's as great as we all think the day after the draft when it comes to picking the players. I do think he's great at acquiring extra value by trading down and, getting surplus picks and that stuff. But there are a lot of guys that slide, and then the Eagles pick them, and then the media's like, well, I thought that guy was better than that, so he gets an A+. That does tend to happen a lot.
Think that's fair?
Yes.
You do?
Yeah, absolutely.
His scouting department is Daniel Jeremiah, Mel Kiper, Todd McShay, and that he's following their board, and perception matters.
Correct.
And they're going to say, well, he did exactly what I thought he was going to do, and that's why he's smart.
Right.
Okay.
He's not wrong on, some of those names, too. Like, everyone was like, oh, my God, of course they got Nakobe Dean. You haven't heard anything from him. And they actually need a linebacker.
Well, he was a late second-round pick.
Sure.
Had a lot of injuries.
Right, but he was touted to, have that talent, and he hasn't done anything.
I agree about Nolan Smith.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't do anything last year.
Right.
Jalen Carter, I'm going to wait and see on him.
Sure.
Because
100%.
He's a monster. Yes. And he was a rookie last year. Mm-hmm. And just give it a second, because he is freakish for his size.
Right.
So,
but remember, though,
and he had 6 sacks as a rookie. So just slow down on that one. He's no bust.
Yes, correct.
He went 9th because of character issues.
Yeah, right.
He could have been the number 1 pick last year. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna wait and see on him. That wasn't a hard pick at 9. I remember when they took him, I went, oh God, because they keep landing on these super talents.
Yeah.
But this is last year's draft for him. Carter, Nolan Smith. Nolan Smith hadn't done anything yet. Mm-hmm. Tyler Steen, never heard of him. Sidney Brown, who's was playing.
Yeah.
Ringo, to his point, didn't do anything. Yeah. Right. This has actually it's interesting. They took a couple corners high. I'll read off the corners they've taken in recent years. None of them have worked out to be really good. They had to go get Bradbury and Slay.
Yeah.
And safety's been a black hole for them. They messed up by letting C.J. Gardner-Johnson go. He was the one that worked out for them. That actually has been a black hole for them. They've had a problem in the secondary because they don't draft well there. They don't produce well there. Other spots, different story. Offensive line, they're amazing at it. When they go get receivers, they work out to be really good. They've gone through a history of having very good rotational running backs.
Right.
They drafted Kenneth Gainwell. They drafted Boston Scott. Like, none of these guys are great, but they're all really good second, third, fiddle players for whoever the lead figure is, and whether it's DeAndre Swift or going to be Saquon Barkley, they seem to figure that out. I think they've done well at quarterback in general. Wentz, people don't remember this, was incredibly good the first couple of years he was in the league, and then I don't know what happened to him, but something fell off, and they pivoted, and everyone said Jalen Hurts couldn't play in the league. He's turned out to be really good. So I'm hearing out Nick right here, because I think he had an interesting point about it, that everyone has lauded him as like some draft genius when all he is really picking players on a board. But if you really go through the drafts and look at the players that they got, actually the vast majority of them are not impact players, especially the last couple of years.
Right.
But he's getting all the A grades because he went and did these things. Like, they talked about moving up. Well, they got this corner at 22, didn't have to move up, first corner off the board. He's a genius.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think what happens here too, though, is when you nail some of your drafts and then you're only hurting in one or two positions, you can afford to draft like that.
This is why the draft is everything.
Right.
If you draft well, you can use free agency to fill the voids or fill your blind spots. Every team has a blind spot. For a long time, the Ravens, whatever receiver they picked,
all of them
wasn't going to work out until last year.
They
finally, and he was the one I watched on film, and I went, that guy's actually going to be good. Watch.
Yeah.
For years and years and years. Like, I think they have, like anybody else, they have their blind spots. Like, when they pick defensive backs, it hasn't gone particularly well. So and that's why I think the Cooper DeJean one's really funny, that we traded with them and they took him.
Yep.
And I'm like, all right, we'll see about that. We might have got the better corner after the trade, after you did it. Right. So, like, we'll see how that goes. But it was funny he brought up that guy, the Houston Christian defensive end that nobody had ever heard of, but all this, the pundits knew of because he probably tested somewhere and he's off the charts because he's probably a crazy athlete. Well, they picked him. Why? Because he heard about him from Daniel Jeremiah?
Right. Maybe.
I
mean, here's the other thing.
It's hard to totally criticize them. Their team's really good.
No. So I do
that's
think
the thing.
Nick Wright might be correct on here that maybe we overrate his drafts. But I still, and I said this going into this offseason, Roseman as just a personnel man in general is still one of the best in the league. Like
100%.
Like
See, that's where like the criticism for me is like,
and he did say that. Wright did say that like
he did qualify it like
trading down.
He
and
does trade down, and like don't overlook the fact that when he needs a corner, he gets a deal done for Slay, who's great for them.
Correct.
Or Bradbury for a couple of years, that's really good or good enough for them. Goes and gets Barkley, and we all throw up our hands, going, I cannot believe they got him too.
Right.
So there's like the AJ Brown trade. What a win. Like, come on. That guy might be the best receiver in the NFL, and they got him.
Yep.
So I don't want to discredit what he's done. They've put together an amazing roster one way or the other, and he deserves credit for that.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I get what Wright is saying about the draft specifically, but it's the other things that he does that make him one of the best in the league. And
I agree.
Like, they'd be dumb to get rid of him because of the drafts. It's everything else that he brings to the table.
It actually is interesting if you look at their drafts and you don't see these boon drafts that change the trajectory of the team, and yet at the same time they're still really good.
Correct. Exactly right.
Our hope here is that we got somebody who's openly stated we want to build through the draft.
Yep.
This is hopefully going to be a transformational one for them. They had 6 picks in the top 100. And they needed to baseline the roster. We're going to look back at this draft with the Commanders, and in 5 years, it will determine really what's happened with them. Part of it will obviously be Jaden and how he performs, because that's a big, big, big part of that puzzle. But if Sandestrill is going to a second contract, or Ben Sinnott is going to a second contract, or maybe this tackle they got in the 3rd round ends up being someone who becomes a reliable starter for them or a really good player for them, it will be the transformational moment. If none of those things end up happening, then you're going to look back on this and go, well, I guess we didn't draft as well as we thought we did.
That's right. Exactly.
And that's where these draft grades, in the end are hard to prove out later. But to his point, we're saying how he did it again. Well, actually, if you look at some of the results here, the players haven't really turned out the way he would have expected. He did manage the capital very well by moving around.
Of course. Yeah. Yes. No, absolutely. I just think they've all got their flaws, every GM, and this seems to be his a little bit, that he kind of goes a little bit, like, to use the phrase in fantasy, he goes a little auto draft, it seems.
Maybe.
Seems he takes the best player that's on all of the lists.
Yeah.
And doesn't maybe use his own research, which, I don't know, maybe it's a time management thing too. Like Peters, I saw some fans kind of, poo-pooing Peters a little bit because when Peters was asked about Jaden Daniels, he said, well, I never watched film in San Francisco on him. And I saw some fans go, well, why would he not be watching film on the number 2 quarterback in the draft? And it was Peters going, I learned about time management in San Francisco. It wasn't worth me watching the film of, one, a top quarterback that we weren't going to be in a position to draft.
Right.
Or two, we didn't need a quarterback either because we had Purdy. So,
right.
Like, what I look at it is maybe that's Roseman going, I don't need to do all this scouting. I don't need to do all of this. I'm just going to take everyone's boards and slam them all together. And I'll use that ranking system.
Like, we need defensive backs.
Right.
And we're picking, we're going to get one.
We're going to take the 2 best on the board.
Right.
Unless it's like there's a run or something
right.
like
and
that.
hopefully one of them turns out to be really good.
Right.
And then we look really smart.
Right. Because, I think what the mistake is like, there's one extreme and there's the other. There's his, where clearly he goes off of maybe just the boards that everyone else has. And there's like what Ron used to do, where Ron was going, we need a ball hawking corner and we're just going to pick one.
That's right.
Doesn't matter where he's ranked, but we're taking him. Or we need a backup.
They watched a lot of film on Forbes. They loved him.
But still, what I really actually point to, like, his worst pick, I think, here was Mathis. And he's going, well, we need a backup defensive tackle. So we're just taking whoever's there. And then you take the guy that's supposed to go in the 3rd round. Yeah, at the top of the 2nd round.
Top of the 2nd.
Like,
and
that's where,
I don't know what his future is today, honestly, too.
Yeah,
after that pick of Newton, we'll have to see. I mean, there's still room there on the roster. He still is on a rookie contract. He still is a large body. So we'll have to see.
Right, but
he's also been unlucky with injuries, too.
Right.
So we'll just have to kind of see.
But I'm just saying, like, there's not ever the, like, oh, God, the Eagles overdrafted that guy. Like, we got it a few times with Pete Carroll, where Carroll would overdraft the guys, but, like, he actually would hit on a few of them. Like, Bruce Irvin was overdrafted by them, and they got killed for it. But he ended up being a really good defensive end for them, Like, there were a few that people questioned, but when you nail one or two of them, people back off.
Yes.
So I think with Roseman, you can't really be mad at him if he's drafting guys around where they're supposed to be drafted.
Yeah. Let's see. This one from Daniel Jeremiah, who said this on his podcast and reiterated by Seahawks GM John Schneider in previous comments when Drew Lock signed with the Giants. Mm-hmm. Daniel Jeremiah said this: I believe Drew Lock has a really good shot at winning the job. They, the Giants, were comparing Daniel Jones and Drew Lock, and the emphasis was on Drew Lock to the quarterbacks that were going to be there in the draft. And I think the line for them was Drake May. So if they could have gotten Drake May, they might have either traded or worked something out where Jones is gone. Drew Lock is the starting quarterback. Drake May's the quarterback in development for a year or two.
Sure.
Jones is gone. Drake May being taken by the Patriots took him off the board. They clearly didn't see the same thing in J.J. McCarthy, so they've changed their tune. So they're going to take a quarterback smoke was real only if they could get one specific person, which I actually, I agree about. Like, I don't think you just take anybody at that position. Right. I really don't think you take anybody to take anybody. You have to really like them, and that's where that ended. So will Drew Lock beat out Daniel Jones? I think that's 50-50. If they actually open that competition up, I actually think there's a decent shot that Lock wins it on his own. I actually agree with that.
I mean, it also depends how well the offense is being run, too. Like, they're not going to obviously run with Lock as much as they do with Jones.
No.
But if they're going to kind of switch to a more normal passing game, I don't know.
100% they both play this year.
Yeah. Oh,
100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
That happens.
Which one of them is beating the Commanders in those ugly uniforms?
Stop it. I can't have Daniel Jones beat me again. I've decided this is going to be his last year there. I've decided we must defeat him twice.
It's going to be a game up there in October.
Well, it doesn't matter which quarterback we play. DeVito beat us last year.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Whoever they throw. Tyrod beat us last year. DeVito beat us last year. Jones beat us. We got some weird curse with that team. I don't know what it is.
They're going to play them in those ugly uniforms up there.
Yeah.
They're going to lose.
Wonder where Cutlet's future is going to be. Where's he going to end up?
No, who cares? What a dumb trend that was for 3 weeks.
Listen, I was happy for them because they were having a sad season. And, it was one of those, let them have their fun. This is ridiculous. Let them have their fun.
I actually despise that franchise off the field more than the other two in the division because of the whole cap situation years and years ago.
Oh, yeah.
With the Maras saying that we and
they did it to Dallas, too. They did it to both of us.
We and the Cowboys, though. Yeah. Like, that was like, bro, come on.
Like, you're kidding, right?
It screwed them over for what, 3 seasons? For having less cap room than the rest of the league? Yeah.
The other news that's out there about the Drake May thing was apparently the Vikings did offer 3 ones to the Patriots.
Okay.
11, 23, and next year's first-round pick to move up and take Drake May. The Patriots turned this down. As the draft played out, they could have had J.J. McCarthy at 11 and 2 more first-round picks.
Yeah.
So what do you want here? Do you want Drake May or do you want J.J. McCarthy and 2 more first-round picks if you were the Patriots? And I would argue, I think I would have done the latter and not done this. Now, they wouldn't have known they were going to get J.J. McCarthy, and we don't know if they even wanted him anyway, right?
Yeah.
But that's how it played out. The Vikings, I think, lucked into J.J. McCarthy, and actually this reporting undermines everything because it's like you wanted to get the other guy, but you settled for the other dude, which is never great.
Well,
when the Falcons, of all the complaints about what they did, they really wanted that dude.
Yeah.
Like, there's no question. They weren't trying to get somebody else. They really, because everybody was like, what are you doing? And they're like, we are convicted that this guy's going to be great, and we wanted him, so we took him. That's not what the Vikings did. The Vikings tried to get other people and settled on McCarthy, which maybe they'll get lucky and they'll just work out that way. But that's not a great feeling, I don't think. And I've been saying this for months with them. They're desperate. That's why you can get a deal done with them. They're desperate.
They were doing the Ron move.
Yeah. Hey, guys, we really want a quarterback.
We really want a quarterback. Yeah, you and everyone else.
Open for business.
Get in line.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get in line, pal.
Yeah. Even O'Connell's like, I'm not talking about this anymore.
Right. Well, to your point, though, maybe the Patriots, though, pulled what you always say. Maybe Drake May was their guy, and they had settled in on that of, hey, if Washington...
Apparently they were, because apparently they were offered things that I think, in the end, I probably, if I was in that position, probably would have taken. 11-23, next year's first-round pick, to give them Drake May, who might not even start for them this year, and you're taking a bet on that first-round pick's going to be pretty good next year, too. Ooh, that's in that division, with what happened with the Bears, the Lions, and the Packers, you're taking a bet on Minnesota's going to have a rough year in that division.
Yeah, you could have pulled the Bears move, or the Bears.
All of a sudden, you're picking in the top 5 again, because you're off of their pick. I think I would have taken that, where the Patriots were, but they must be convicted too that they love Drake May.
And that's their guy. That's their guy. I can't hate that.
I think in the end, that to me is a mistake. I would have taken the 3 first-round picks, dropped down. Let's see. I would have thought I would have gotten Penix at 11.
That's right.
That would have been the surprise to me that didn't happen. And then go, well, we can get J.J. McCarthy. I think I would have been all right with that. That would have been me. So that's the decision they made. And if Drake May turns out to be great, then they end up being right. But we'll see. Yeah. We'll see about that. There was the other thing I didn't even talk about, where the Vikings and the Patriots apparently called the Chargers and tried to get Justin Herbert.
I saw that,
hoping that, he wants his boy.
JJ or someone else.
He could pick him at 5 and they can get all these draft picks for Herbert. And, you can say a lot of things about Jim Harbaugh. He ain't dumb.
Yeah, right. Correct. Yeah. He's not trading that guy.
Like, that call, he's probably like, what?
Well,
that's a mouth-breathing call. Well, what'd you say?
Well, you know why they
Herbert?
You know why they really didn't do it, right?
I think it starts with the Patriots. Oh, you want him? Well, I want the number 3 overall pick and something else. And they're probably like, no. And then he's like, well, then what'd you call me about?
Schefter said this, though. The reason that actually didn't happen is if they were to trade him, it was the biggest dead cap hit in league history.
Right.
So whatever that number was, they can't field a team.
Plus, Herbert's good.
Oh, yeah. Duh.
But there's no question about that.
Right.
But, listen, I don't blame him for calling up and going, how much do you really like that McCarthy guy? Because you could have him.
Look, if Ron and, whoever, Mayhew, were calling up the Chiefs, about Mahomes a few years ago.
Oh, remember that? We called everybody about every quarterback. And then they got made fun of. And we're like, why wouldn't you call and ask about Mahomes? Why, who knows?
You want to know the dead cap on Herbert if you were to trade him?
How much?
$129 million. Yeah.
So that's not going anywhere.
That was never going to happen.
What? It's not like he's not good. He is.
Yeah.